Good morning, everybody. David here at Scale Models Midwest. Welcome back to the workbench for a very special video that I'm doing today. Got a couple more videos I have planned between now and the end of the holiday before I go back to work, but this one is special. I'm in the paint booth, and I'm going to finally use an airbrush that I bought 3.5 years ago, a compressor 3.5 years ago, and paint that I just bought last week. I've been wanting to do airbrush for a good while. And I've been watching other people as they're doing their airbrushes, and they're coming out really good. I've watched Jason over at Blue Ox Models. I've watched Matt over at Model Car Videos, and I've watched others who have used their airbrush, and the job's looking pretty good. And especially with the 2K clear and the hardener, I've been reading up on it, doing a lot of research, getting ready for it. And finally I decided before I start painting my MCW and Scale Finishes paint and 2K hardener, or 2K clear in the hardener, I needed to practice a few times and practice with different kind of paint. So before I go and paint those kits, I decided I was going to use the Willis model. This is the Coca-Cola Willis model from AMT, widely available. I sanded down all the mold marks. There were, typical mold lines around the back of the cab, very top part of the rear of the cab. The peaks on the fenders and underneath, sanded that all. I have yet to sand this with a 3200 grit cloth and a 4000 grit cloth to give it a little bit of a sheen, a little bit of a bite to it for the paint, but I'll be doing that here shortly while I'm waiting for Terry Adams, who has been super instrumental in inspiring me to want to really take this leap once and for all to get this going, and he was excited that I was going to do airbrushing, that he wanted to kind of be there for the first time. So hopefully, Terry will give me a call here soon. I'll call him otherwise. But let me show you what kind of equipment I got. I went 3.5 years ago to Hobby Haven in Urbandale, and I bought the Genesix XGI dual action airbrush. Now what this dual action airbrush is, I'll show it here because I got it ready to go. If you push down on the trigger, you release air. You push down and pull back, you do paint. All right, and it's going to take some practice, I know, to get the coordination just right. The videos I've been watching last night and today, just kind of like a refresher, say the exact same thing. So, I was looking at one guy called Orc Painter Nerd. His videos are fantastic, but there are a ton of videos out there. If you're unsure about airbrushing and you haven't bought one yet, watch the videos first. Get an idea in your head on what you want to get, and then if you're going to buy an airbrush, the advice I can give you right now is if you're serious about airbrushing, get the best that you can afford. The reason why I say go for the best that you can afford is that's what was told to me. Get the best that you can afford. Don't get the little $50 airbrush. There are some out there that are battery operated. I have seen more bad reviews about them than good. So why waste your money on something that isn't quality? Go for the stuff that's there. Iwata. There's another one that there's another modeling channel based out of Holland that has a different one. And then of course Grex. That's another name brand that you see. And I just read up on them and decided to get a Grex. But what I did afterwards is I needed to get a compressor. So one of my friends does airbrushing, and he said, you need to look at this one. I went over to Harbor Freight here in Des Moines at the time, and I picked up an oilless airbrush compressor, central pneumatic. This comes with a moisture trap, adjustable air regulator, and a gauge. Now this has a maximum PSI of 58, so I can adjust it. 15 to 20 PSI is recommended for airbrushes. That's what I've been seeing in a lot of videos. So that's what I'm going to try and shoot for. Yeah, we'll see what we got. But again, there's the body. This is the stand that I'm going to keep it in when I'm not using it. And when I'm done, any residual paint, and even thinner when I go to clean it, can go into this paint pot. And then I'll clean the paint pot out after that. But what color am I going to paint it? Well, I've got some MCW paints and some Scale Finishes paint, but I wanted to start off with the basics. So again, I was back over at Hobby Haven, and he suggested I go and look at the Vallejo paints first if I'm looking for a first paint just to get, you know, my feet wet and to kind of build up my chops. So that's what I did. I went over, and most of it looks like more for Army figurines and what have you. But I saw blue. My daughter picked it out, and it's pre-thinned. You just have to shake it really well for about a minute. And then I'm just going to put it in the cup and then run the spray. So at this point, I'm going to go and sand the body, get that cleaned up, wait for Terry's call, and then I'll get started. Stay tuned. Okay, so got done talking with Terry. We spent a little over an hour, almost an hour and a half, talking while I was doing this. I'm gonna edit the video quite a bit so it's not so long, but just wanted to show you what I did with my very first attempt at using my airbrush, and the results, they're not bad for the first time. They only get better. That's how it works through practice, just as Terry was saying. It just takes time. A couple things that we'll show you, and a couple things that we learned from this. First of all, when airbrushing, you want to go no different than when you're spray painting from a can, is go from one side to the other, actually starting past it and making a pass, a nice sweep, and you go back and forth. Start off with your fender wells, your edges and what have you first, and then once you have that fogged in, you go after the body. As you can see, the paint, this is 3 coats. All right, had some light mist, and then I had not thinned the Vallejo paint initially, so my first 2 coats were not thinned. But even though it was pretty thin, Terry suggested thinning it just a little bit more, you know, maybe a 1:1 ratio, and I did that, and it came on better because we had, after 2 coats, we had orange peel. But as you can see, we replaced the orange peel with junk. So when this fully dries, I'll wet sand it before clearing. But a couple things about the paint that I used and some suggestions going forward. The body ultimately did not turn out bad. One, I had no runs. I was afraid that I was going to put the airbrush too close to the body and I was going to have runs. I did that with spray cans when I first started with that. But no runs. From here, you can see after 3 coats that the paint did do a really good job covering. But as Terry and I talked about it, and I agree with Terry, the Vallejo paints are not ideal for model car building. They're better for figurines, for military, but it was the start. I'd rather work with this, get some practice down, get my chops in, and then look at my MCW and scale finishes paint, or even Tamiya paint, as we'll get to in a moment. So that's the body. The front nose piece, a little different. One, didn't have the greatest coverage here on this side fender, which is okay. Again, a little lighter at the bottom here. Again, it's okay. This is the first time. Around this side, just a little better. I'm trying to hold this delicately because it's tacky. It's not dried yet. I can run my finger along it, but it's still tacky. So I just want to be careful. But the top, as you can see here, probably the best angle, I have, just like on the top of the body, I have junk. And I think this is because, if you look at my airbrush booth, the filter needs to be changed. So I'm going to be changing that out this afternoon. I've got an extra filter for that. But overall, I'm going to say this, it's not a bad first effort for an airbrush. Now, having said that, Terry and I, like I said, we spent a good hour and a half chatting. I may have mentioned it in the other parts of this video as we went along. One, if you're going to get into airbrushing, get the best one that you can afford. Second, the type of paint that's used. Again, I showed you, I used a Vallejo blue, which is more suited for military, for figurines, Warhammer, what have you. It's an enamel paint, and as such, you can thin it, but even though it was pretty thin, it's still not going to have the same kind of finish at all as you would, say, Tamiya, or even, you know, testers, or scale finishes, MCW paints, you name it. I definitely have read up on 1:1 ratios for paint to thinner, so I'm going to continue doing that. and build up my skills on some other model bodies. Terry gave me some good suggestions. Again, Vallejo, not bad, but not suited for this. Instead, he suggested, you know, if you're going to use paint through the airbrush, decant some paints like Testors or Tamiya. I actually have a couple cans that I have yet to open of TS8 and some silver and some black. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to decant those into, he suggested, and I actually have some, pill bottles that are no longer used. I've taken the labels off of them. I figured I'd use them for parts or what have you. So it'd be perfect to put a piece of tape over the top and then, you know, have a hole just large enough to fit the nozzle into and decant the Tamiya or Testors paint into the jar, or in this case, the empty medicine tube. I like my Tamiya paint, so I'm going to do just that. He said once that's done, let it gas out for about 10-15 minutes. Then you can put that in the airbrush and spray away. So I will be doing that later this week. I've got some running around to do some errands to run. I might actually do it later on today. But decant some paint from a spray can into a bottle, whether it's a spare bottle or medicine bottle, and you're good. And again, this is just strictly for the beginner. Build up your practice with that. Once you've got a couple of paint jobs down and you want to step it up maybe to a pre-thin scale auto finishes or MCW paint, do that. If the paint is not pre-thin, go with at least a 1-to-1 ratio, paint to thinner, and then of course go from there. I also recommend, I watched about 10 to 12 different YouTube videos from people who were using different airbrushes. I saw a couple using Grex, a couple using Pache, I think it is. There was one scale modeling channel that uses a Harder and Steenhoek, and others that were using Iwata brushes. But they all had the same basic thing, you know, take your time, side to side swipes, light coats, okay? Very light coats. Clean your airbrush. Now the cleaning of the airbrush did not take long at all. I did run a couple of pipettes worth of airbrush thinner through the airbrush until it looked like it was clear, but it wasn't. I went and I did one more cup of airbrush cleaner, ran that through, and then I started to take it apart. I took the needle out, cleaned it from back to front. I cleaned the cup, I cleaned the housing, everything up front. I used Q-tips, and then I just kind of used a lint-free brush, or lint-free cloth, sorry, to just kind of clean everything up. And then I used, yet again, more thinner, and I have a metal pipe that's in my office. So I went on ahead and sprayed that metal pipe just to make sure I wasn't getting anything out of there paint-wise. I noticed just a little bit more paint was in there. So once again, used a few more pipettes of thinner and cleaner till it was clear. So now I know my airbrush is ready to use again with a new color. And this didn't take me more than about 10 minutes to clean it all up. So I touched on this one as my last parting point. Get a mentor. If you are doing this on your own, you're watching videos, and you're doing well, great. Become a mentor for someone else who's just starting out. Terry, I consider one of my mentors because he has taken the time to reach out to me, to email me consistently, and send me pictures of his work to give me ideas for what I can do for future builds myself. We talked today about lace, about striping, and two-tone paint jobs. So I'll be reaching out to him as I go and do those as well. So yeah, get a mentor. And if you want to reach out to me, for me to be a mentor to you for something, by all means, my email is in the description. Reach out to me, see what I can help you out with. But with that, I'm away from the workbench for a little bit. I'm gonna run out with my daughter since I'm off this week. We're gonna run some errands. I'm gonna go check out the hobby shop again, see if there's some stuff. I've got a couple more videos to put out this week and through the weekend. Almost done with the Camaro, so that'll be pretty cool for the group build that Adam's putting on over at Sodak Model Cars. But also finalizing what I plan to do for my 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So stick around, watch those videos, check them out. I think you'll like the giveaway. I've got an idea on that one and a challenge as well. So with that, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna get this buttoned up, get this online, continue to build the cool kits. Catch you next video.